Welcome to Resilience and Resolve with Lance Drury.
Welcome back to Resilience and Resolve with Attorney Lance Drury. When taxpayers fall behind, the IRS has a long list of tools they could use, and one of the most disruptive is wage garnishment. Losing part of your paycheck overnight can turn an already stressful situation into a crisis. I'm Evan Mack, and today Lance is breaking down what wage garnishment actually is, how it happens, and the steps people can take to stop it. Lance, my man, welcome back.
How you doing, Evan? It's great to see you again. It's been a while.
I know. You're a busy man. No, I understand though. But let's talk about this garnishment. For someone hearing the term for the first time, what does wage garnishment actually mean in just plain English?
Well, it means that the IRS can come in and garnish 90% of your take-home pay on your check.
Wow.
And again, they're not going to tell you when they do it, but they have to give you advance notice before they do it. They have to go through a sequence of letters before they can levy you. And when the last letter comes, the final notice of intent to levy, you have 30 days to file a collection due process hearing, which is basically an appeal. And when you file that legal paperwork, it stops the levy and it gives you at least 6 months or longer to get your ducks in a row so that you can work out a resolution with the IRS, because during the time that hearing is pending, the IRS cannot levy against you.
So when does the IRS typically consider garnishing wages? What has to happen before they get to that point?
Well, you have to have outstanding liability, and I don't know that there's any one thing. You have to understand, Evan, and you know this, the IRS is a bureaucracy. Things fall through the cracks. And so there's no rhyme, no reason to when they do it. There's no actual time frame. But what does happen is if you call them up, you're putting yourself on their radar, and then they're going to start the levy process against you, which is that sequence of letters that they have to send to you before they can actually do the garnishment. So don't ignore those letters, because how are you going to live if 90% of your take home pay is garnished? I got a real horror story to tell you about this, Evan. Several years ago, a gentleman came into my St. Louis office and he looked like he was half dead.
Mm-hmm.
So when he sat down, I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I've been living in my car for more than a year because the IRS is leaving me $200 every 2 weeks to live on." And the problem was, at that point, he probably could have got it out of all this, but he didn't have the money to hire me or anybody else. And so that's the problem. If you wait too long, the big bad wolf's going to descend, and it's not going to be pretty.
Wow. Well, but people often assume garnishment affects only a small portion of income. You just talked about what can happen. How much can the IRS actually take from the paycheck? You said around like 90%.
Yeah, they can take 90% of your take home pay. Now, here's the other thing that's interesting, and I don't know if you have these questions in mind down the road, but I'm going to jump to this right now. Here's the bad thing about a wage levy: it is continuous until you get the levy lifted or the amount of the levy is satisfied. So it could go on for month after month after month if you don't do anything about it. Now, the good thing is, if you do get levied, you can get that levy lifted in whole or in part if you can prove to the IRS that it is going to act as a financial hardship. Well, guess what? If they're taking 90% of your take home pay, you're not going to be able to pay the bills. It's going to be a financial hardship. So you need to get on it. You can't delay with these people. I see it all the time. I got to tell you, Evan, last summer, it's normally slow in my office a little bit in the summer because people think, "Oh, I'm going to go out and have fun in the sun. I want to go on vacation. I want to take the kids here." They ignore their IRS problems. They say, "Oh, I'll take care of it in the fall." Well, guess what? The IRS was so active with levies or threats to levy last June that we had a record revenue month, and then we broke that record in August, and that was unbelievable that happened in the summer months. But that's when people call me, is when those threats to levy against people come out. That finally gets people to take action to get this resolved. So don't wait. You're better off getting it taken care of as soon as possible. But Evan, here's the problem. And even my clients admit this. 90% or more of my clients are procrastinators. They get in trouble because they put things off. They're going to take care of it next week. But here's the other problem. 70% or more of my clients are self-employed. And so everybody thinks being self-employed is the American dream. Well, it's not really the American dream. Most small businesses don't make a lot of money. You got to pay your own health care out of that. You got to fund your own retirement. You got to work long hours. You get home at 7, 8 o'clock at night. The last thing people want to do is book work. And so it just sort of snowballs from there. And people just get in big trouble because they don't take care of everything they need to do to run the business, including taking care of their tax liability.
And so, Lance, once that garnishment starts, though, what immediate steps can someone take to keep the situation from getting from bad to worse?
Well, you need to hire a tax professional because, like I said earlier, you can go in and you can take financial statements and you can get supporting documentation to show that the numbers on your financial statement are real and they're accurate. And then if you can call the IRS and prove to them that it's a financial hardship, that you can't pay the bills, you can get that levy lifted in whole or in part. So that's the biggest thing I got to tell everybody. Don't wait. It'll be too late. You'll be in so deep and you may not have the funds to hire somebody to help you out. And you don't want to take care of this on your own. Trying to call the IRS on your own is like trying to talk to the cops if you're charged with a crime. They are not your buddy. They are not your friend. They take advantage of lay people. They have one job, and that's to collect as much money as possible. And they don't care why you got into this debt. They don't care that you had a sick child. They don't care that you took care of your parents. They don't care that your business went bad for a few months. All they care about is that you owe the money and they want that money. So that's why the system is broke, because they really don't care why people got into this situation to begin with. And I've got another horror story to tell you. We had a guy in Southern Illinois, and he ran like a health deal, some form of health. He was the only one in the area, which is why we got the levies lifted, because if they put him out of business, there was nobody going to be able to take care of these people in need that had all these disabilities, that need the transportation and everything. Well, one of the arguments that we flew, and we got him a great deal before it was over with. But one of the problems why he got into this mess was his contracts were with the state of Illinois.
Wow.
And guess what? The state of Illinois would not honor the contracts in whole. He would get paid less than what he was supposed to get paid, and the payments would come late.
Wow.
So this put him into that situation. And when I went to tell this to the IRS, they didn't care. We did win some other arguments and we got him a great deal, but they didn't care that some other governmental entity got him into this situation. So, you got to keep working. You got to help these people out. There are so many people in dire needs of help. I don't know if I've told you this before, Evan. There's 26 million delinquent taxpayers. In 2032, 6 years from now, there are going to be 35 million delinquent taxpayers. So I think, Evan, I got job security for a while.
You do. But are there certain financial circumstances that can influence how much the IRS can take, or is that amount like a fixed amount?
Well, one of the things that can happen is when you get those levies, you can fill out this form and you can list all your dependents. So if you can prove to them you have dependents, then that levy is going to be lowered right away. But if you want to get rid of the levy completely, then you have to show them. You just can't say, I don't have the ability to pay the bills. You have to show them with documentation, with financial statements, with your bank statements, credit card statements, debit card statements, that it's a financial hardship for this levy, and then you can get it lifted if you can prove that to the satisfaction of the IRS.
Yeah, I know one of the things that taxpayers worry about though, Lance, is if they contact the IRS, it'll make things worse. Is that kind of communication maybe when it's done correctly, can it actually help if you do that, or would you not advise someone to do that?
No, you should taxpayers should never contact the IRS directly. It just puts you on their radar. Obviously, if you're already under garnishment, you're already on their radar, so it's no big deal at that point. But you're not, the biggest thing is 99% of our clients never fill out those financial statements correctly. It's even worse with people who are self employed because what we run into in the past is they don't list all their business expenses. They overstate their income. They think the revenue coming in is their income, and it's not. You got to deduct your business expenses. So you really need a tax professional to help you through all this. That's the only way to do it. It's the only way you're going to get any satisfaction to the IRS. You think you're going to save some bucks by doing it yourself. And I've got to tell you, you're going to spend more money in the long run if you try to do it yourself. And you're probably not going to be successful. And a lot of times you make things a lot worse.
Mm. So what if someone's already on another type of IRS program, like maybe that installment agreement? How does that affect the wage garnishment?
Well, if you're in an installment agreement and you're paying on that agreement and you're doing it every month, you're fully compliant on paying on that installment agreement, and you don't incur any additional liability down the road, you're not going to get garnished in the first place. Once you have a deal with Uncle Sam, he is not going to garnish you. Any garnishments will be lifted once you have an agreement, but you have to stay 100% compliant moving forward, which means you have to pay on time and file on time. And so then you don't have to worry about the garnishment if you have an installment agreement set up with the IRS.
Hmm. And lastly, Lance, for listeners who are scared they may be next, what's the most important thing they can do right now to prevent the IRS from reaching into their paycheck?
Well, the best thing to do is if you got tax liability is you need to hire somebody that does this every single day. I tell people, if you don't hire me, there's 3 rules. You hire an attorney that does this every single day. Accountants are great with the numbers, but they just dabble in this. All the attorneys in all my offices have seen accountants give atrocious advice. They've put tens of thousands of liability on the books for their client because they just dabble in this.
Hmm.
Go local. We have offices in St. Louis, Nashville, San Antonio, and Houston, and we have people in those areas. And number 3, don't hire one of the big boys. There's a lot of scam artists out there. They just take your money and they don't do any work. You can look us up. We're a 4.8 out of 5 in St. Louis Google reviews. We're a 4.9 out of 5 in Nashville, Tennessee. We're the real deal. Go to my website, see the awards, see the books, see the speeches I've given across the country. And so you got to hire somebody that takes this. Don't do it yourself. Get a tax professional. Get an attorney that does this every single day.
Lance, my man, appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you, Evan. It's always great to be here.
Absolutely. And thank you all for listening to Resilience and Resolve with Lance Drury. Wage garnishment can feel overwhelming, but it's not the end of the road. And it's not something you have to face alone. To learn more, get help protecting your income, you heard the man. Visit lancedrurylaw.com. And don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone else who may need it. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.